Welcome back to the podcast. Gabe and I, we are on for our weekly episode where we talk all things life. And we are starting to talk about movies. We were talking about the Masters tournament for golf that was going on. And one of the things that came to mind, and because you're 34, so you don't get it as bad as me. But one thing that makes me feel super aged, and I think the audience will relate to this, is when you talk about movies and people have no idea what you're talking about. Like, I'll give you an example. Dumb and Dumber was like massive back in the day, or Caddyshack was like even before that. Or I brought up to you right now, Weekend at Bernie's. There's so many movies like, dude, what was that series? People are gonna know which one I'm talking about here. Oh, with this guy Jason, Wedding. Damn.
What, Wedding Crashers?
Not Wedding Crashers. Like, of course, Wedding Crashers.
That's not old at all.
Damn it, with Stifler. Do you remember the movies with Stifler?
Oh, you're talking about American Pie?
American Pie. There it is.
Wedding
there it
something.
is. Dude, American Pie. I'll never forget when that came out.
Dude, how many of those movies just like wouldn't play nowadays?
Oh, for sure. But the first American Pie, dude, the first American Pie, man.
Out of control.
Oh, anyways.
Good times, man.
Well, good morning, good afternoon. Oh, man, what was that girl's name? The really good looking girl that like the main character like had a.
I don't remember, man. I've seen those movies like a handful of times.
It was like, I mean, she was gorgeous. I don't remember her name, but anyways. All right.
It is funny though, man. Like the whole quote unquote getting old thing. I feel like there's something about like once you get into your 30s. So I'm 34, but I feel like early 30s is where like a lot of things shifted for like over the past 3 years. I've had like the first couple of like incidents, and I've talked about some of this on the podcast, like that guy that I trained, the high school kid that I trained, and just like the music and like the stuff that he would say, like never have I been like literally out of the loop. I was like, what are you? First of all, like, I don't understand what you're saying. Second of all, the song you're trying to play is incredibly lewd and I'm not into it. And, you know, like that was a big, like, man, I feel old. And we joke around about this all the time too, but like, you know, stuff with Liz, producer Liz, who's, you know, a little bit younger than us, actually a lot younger than us, Gen Z. And, you know, she'll know some stuff and like some things that are trending on TikTok and stuff like that. And I'm like, man, I'm out of the loop. And it's been the first time over the past 2 years that I've ever felt that. And let me tell you another thing that is like been mind-blowing to me, especially being a huge baseball fan, is a lot of the up-and-coming players that have also been playing for a while, like they'll come up and they'll list their like date of birth. And I'm like, holy crap.
Yes.
These guys are younger than me.
Dude,
and like,
for sure.
And younger than me by like 2-3 years. And they're like legit players in the major leagues. Like that's been a big moment for me because for a long time, especially watching sports, you're like a kid looking up to like your heroes. Oh man, that's so cool.
Now it's the other way around.
And then all of a sudden you're like, wait, I'm 3 years older than this guy? That's so weird. That to me was like a really weird moment for me when that started happening.
Or how about when you have people born in the 2000s? Like that's weird, you know? Like, wait, your birthday's 2000 and what? Huh? Like that just throws me off. But there's words like, so Caden will come up with all these words. There's a word for bad that's became popular and he uses it all the time. I can't remember what it's called, but there's a word, another word for bad.
Probably knows.
Oh, wait, let me see. What does she say? I want to see what she says.
Skabibi? Skabidi?
No, not Skabibi. I don't think Skabibi.
What's
I've never even heard of that.
Oh my God.
I've never even heard that term
this
before.
Is how out of the loop we are.
Not cooks. Not like, oh, you're cooked, but it was like something like, damn, I almost feel like I want to text Caden and find out what the word is. But I don't think we're gonna be able to. Anyways, it's all good. I'll bring it on the next podcast.
That's so funny.
It's fine. It's all good. What do we what's on the docket for today? By the way, we're not gonna talk about the skier, right? No, we're talking about that on the home team episode.
That's a good home team episode topic.
Oh my gosh.
Giving you a hard time. I will talk about this though. I was thinking about this on my way in. We can talk about this with home team too, but dude, I hope that every guy out there still has a guy group of friends that gives you shit. Like there's just like, dude, in many ways, and I hope you agree, because you were the target of the shit talking this morning. I hope you agree that, like, dude, if you don't have any guys that are like calling you out, whether right or wrong, like just finding a reason to, like, you know, like talk shit or like whatever, make fun of you, I think that that's such a, for whatever reason, and maybe we can have someone on that can like explain this, but like everyone will resonate with the fact that like that is how guy friends show affection to each other. Like if you're in a group of male friends and they never talk shit about you, I'd be worried. I'd be like, man, they don't like me. Like it's so opposite. Like if they're always just like super nice around you and whatever, dude, something's off there. Like my best group of friends are relentless. Like relentless with like, dude, if you give them an inch, if you like put your chin out there, they're going to make you feel it. And it's just, it is what it is. I don't know. Like that was such a normal part of being in college athletics. And those are kind of like the three, I would say, groups of guys that like I still keep in very close touch with. I have my old CrossFit Garden City friends. We talk shit all the time. I have my old swimming buddies, swam in college together. We talk shit all the time. And then now, like, we have the home team guys, you, me, MTV, and Dennis, and we talk shit all the time. And there's something about that I think is A, important, B, just a part of like how guys, like, you know, we don't call each other up and like, you know, just like compliments and like, hey man, like whatever. You know, is there a time for having more serious conversations? Of course, we talk about that all the time. But I think on like a superficial, just, you know, maintaining those friendships, like having fun, dude, the shit talking is a big piece of it. I love it.
Dude, I agree 100%. You know, what's interesting? I was listening to that podcast you sent me with, with
Scott,
the girl
Scott
and
Galloway.
two guys. Who is it?
Scott Galloway, I forget her name, but she's like a high executive at Hinge and has done a lot of now like actual studying and collected like actual data and stats around the differences between men and women, like why dating is where it is, and a lot of things that we've talked about in episodes in the past about, you know, just some of the headwinds men are facing in today's society. It was a very interesting podcast, very interesting.
I thought it was really interesting, in particular, like the way they talk about school. I thought one thing that came to mind is that they said, I want to say it was like a shocking statistic, like 95% of teachers are women. It was like, I mean, maybe that was an exaggeration, but like, I can't remember what the number was
high.
exactly.
I mean, we can look it up.
It's a very high statistic. And then it skews, right? I think that more of them come out at professor level, you know, like in the college and high school, but I'm talking like elementary school quite a bit. This was interesting. I wrote this down. 70% of high school valedictorians are women. 70%. But SAT scores between men and women are identical. Isn't that interesting? So like what they were alluding to with this statistic is that girls thrive in the school system that is difficult these are all generalities, but that 70% of the women that graduate from high school, 70% of valedictorians are women, yet SAT scores are identical. So what that tells me is like the women are thriving within the environment, but yet both sexes are equally intelligent and whatnot. It just comes out that they're better in that setting. But it was interesting. There's so much to unpack on that podcast, by the way.
Well, also the SAT is not by any means a good like what's intelligence? What is it that you're actually testing? Because a big reason, and I don't know if you remember this, I remember this because this was a big deal when I was around the age of taking the test, but the SAT used to not have the writing section at all. And the reason they added the writing section was because men were, or boys, whatever at that age, you were significantly outperforming women because of just like the things that they're better at. So with just a math and critical reading section, men were doing better generally, and that was back then. That's, 10 years ago now. And they added the writing section to the SATs because that was somewhere where women did a lot better, and they were kind of trying to like even the playing field a little bit with the scores. So there's so much that goes into like standardized testing, man. I mean, that's a whole other can of worms because, like what is that really indicating?
Dude,
does it have some validity?
They got rid of it. So the high school placement exam, like in some schools aren't even using it anymore where I'm at. So like when I was getting ready for high school, and these are, by the way, just to caveat, these are schools you have to apply to. They're private schools. The school that Ava applied to did not accept the high school placement exam. They did not want it. What they wanted was 3 different essays and then obviously their transcripts. So I found that to be interesting.
Yeah, I mean, it goes back to like the school system and what are you actually trying to impart? What are you trying to educate on kids? You know, is it the fact that you can memorize a bunch of information and regurgitate it? Is it the fact that you can, because the SAT too, man, like I told you a couple episodes ago, I went to like a very, very competitive high school where the college you got into was like the ultimate like measuring stick of your success. And therefore the SATs were a big part of that. And taking a test like that essentially came to like how much it came to so much strategy about how you can game it too, right? Like there was so much about like, you know, what's the best way to go in there and how much time you want to spend on a question, how the questions are weighted, like whether it's worth guessing sometimes, is there a penalty for getting something wrong versus like leaving something blank? And a lot of that stuff, like you know, you're a lot more equipped if you do very specific SAT prep as opposed to just being something that's like someone that's like very educated and, you know, like has really good communication skills and you've read a lot of books and stuff. There's just so much of a gaming aspect of it that again, like it has to be because that's what makes the standardized test. But I think everyone would agree that, you know, it's not the end all be all of, okay, you have more potential than this person because of the score you got on this test. And therefore we should take you into this school or not. There's so much more that goes into it.
Yeah, I mean, I thought we should put that podcast in the podcast show notes. I thought it's hard for me to articulate. I'm about 3/4 of the way done. It's hard for me to articulate all the takeaways. I wrote down a lot of stuff, but it was just this woman's perspective was so unique because she works at Hinge. And so she does consulting for Hinge or whatnot. So she has all this data from there. And it was just it was a good conversation because she's using real-time data about dating. And she's talking about what women want versus what they say they want versus what actually they want. And they went into some like really interesting stuff that I found to be really compelling. One of the things that I think he or she said emotionally intelligent is the new currency. I found that to be interesting. Like that women are looking for a guy or vice versa she clearly made it seem like they want a guy who is successful, hardworking, all the things, but also emotionally intelligent is like the new modern day masculinity. That's what I was gathering for some of the stuff she was saying. I don't know about you.
Yeah, she said emotional intelligence. However, she had a really interesting point about how men are being held to this like impossible standard now.
Yeah.
And she had very concrete examples of they want guys to be protectors, providers, you know, like women date horizontally and up and men date horizontally and down in every respect, right? So financial success, even like, you know, height, like attractiveness, all of those things.
Oh, did you hear what she said about the filters on people's Hinge?
Yes. But I mean, regardless, right? So if you look at this dating scene out there and women, like I said, date at their level or up, they want a guy that they perceive is, you know, better off financially, possibly like more attractiveness, like more intelligent, like they're looking for someone better. Whereas men are actually dating horizontally and down. And if you look at those two things and the fact that, you know, men are in many ways falling behind, it makes sense that, you know, there seems to be this lack of options out there because there's a lot more women that are, you know, elevating themselves and a lot men that are kind of falling behind. So it just leads to this like, oh, there aren't enough good men out there. And the emotional intelligence thing was interesting because the impossible standard that men are being held up to now is they want protectors, providers, they want like the traditional stuff. And they quote unquote want men to open up and, you know, like talk about their feelings and have this like softer underbelly. But, you know, and she had a bunch of data to back this up. Many times when men do open up about this stuff, women are like, whoa, that's way too much. And they run for the hills. Yeah. So it's like, how can men actually live up to whatever is being put out there as like, this is what we want from men? Like, masculinity is like an issue, like don't be too tough or whatever. Also, they say that, but they don't actually want that. And then when you open up, like, oh, open up, but like not so much. Like, ooh, that's weird. Like, you know, that's ick. And I think that's It's the world that we live in now, man. And it goes a lot back to what I was trying to talk about a couple of episodes ago. It's tough, dude. It's tough. And again, I'm not saying that that means that if you're a guy or if you're raising a son, it's like, throw your hands up and, victim mentality, like, it sucks for us and it's just going to be impossible. But being aware that these things are the way that they are and it's not getting better, I think is an important first step to being a part of the solution. That's all. That's what I was trying to bring up. And maybe I didn't voice it as well the first time that we talked about it, when you were like, hey, like, this isn't something I see, this isn't something I experience. And I was like, well, I mean, it's not necessarily something I see firsthand or experience, but I'm telling you, dude, it is real and it is a problem.
Well,
and
it also could be like a generational
thing. A lot of men.
What I was gathering from her talking about it was like, I think it's also like you said, it's getting worse. Like in my generation, like, I'm almost 40. I think it's different than like these guys who are like in their early 20s. I think, and not to mention they had COVID.
But that's who I care about. Like I care about the world that Shay is going to grow into.
Yeah, of course.
I'm happily married. I have a wife. I think a good idea of what I think me being masculine is and how that manifests itself for the one person that I'm trying to like be incredibly masculine for, which is Ariel, my wife, and we have a good relationship because of it. Like I'm good. I think that what I want to be aware of is like the world that Shay is going to grow up in, and in many ways the way Charlie's going to grow up in, because that's going to be the pool that she's trying to find her eventual partner in. That's why this like matters so much to me. And again, do I see it in person day to day? No. Do I see it mostly online and hear about it in podcasts? Yes. But I think that podcast and the real data to back it up, like, dude, this is real. Like it's out there. And it's a big problem. And I think that like we are in a very unique position with our brand and with this podcast and with the newsletter and like the voice that we have to call out the problem and be a part of the solution. But I always think that like calling out the problem is an important first step, because then it's like, okay, this is the issue and here's how we're trying to address it. And doing one without the other, I think isn't as powerful.
Well, what do you think? So what do you think ultimately at the end of the podcast, right? At the end of the day, if you could summarize the takeaways, and I'm so sorry not to use her name appropriately. I feel terrible about it. I actually messaged her.
We can just look it up real quick.
Yeah, because I hate saying the woman. That just sounds terrible.
I had Scott Galloway. I'm super familiar with Scott because I listen to a lot of his stuff. I've read his book. But no, you're right.
Was it Logan? Yeah, no. Yes, Logan Yuri. Okay. So Logan Yuri, I'd actually messaged her, and because she had said that she'd been hosting some stuff about for guys to get together and stuff like that. Mm-hmm. And I just messaged her and said, hey, just want to let you know I was listening to this, 100% agree with you on the men's group. Hope you're doing great. And that was it. And she messaged me back. It was cool. But nice. Her name is Logan Yuri, Ury. And she had some good feedback. I'll give you her exact. She is the Later Daters at Netflix, behavioral scientist turned dating coach, director of relationship science at Hinge. So like, if you want to talk to somebody about like what we're talking about, I think dude, we should get her on the podcast. Actually, she'd be cool to have.
We should. Yeah. No, that'd be awesome.
Yeah. That's what we should do.
But what were you going to ask me at the end of the podcast?
Oh, yeah. What your major takeaways were? Like, I mean, obviously she has some click stuff on her Instagram, looking at dating apps are making us lonelier and stuff like that. I was wondering, what is your overall takeaway? I'm not fully through the podcast yet, but if you had to summarize down, what would it be?
I think that a lot of, and this even goes back to the conversation we had yesterday with Dave, and I know that podcast will come out a little bit in the future. I think that you can boil down a lot to what's gone wrong with society. And I'm not trying to, I feel like when I say those things, it sounds like super pessimistic. It's not, but there are things that have moved in the wrong direction. I think that we would be much better off with stronger families, stronger relationships, people getting married, people getting together, meeting people. Like, I think that loneliness, like being single, not being able to date, not being able to start a family. And obviously that there's a lot of reasons that all that is happening. But I think a big reason, or at least the reason that I feel we can have a real impact on, is men leveling up, because that seems to be at the crux of a lot of things. A crux of women thinking that there aren't good men around is because like young men should be doing better. They should be taking better care of themselves. They should not be watching porn. They should be going out. They should be like working out, all the things that Scott talked about. I think that, and also like from couples that are already married, I think that husbands and fathers could do better. They could do better. Like divorce is an issue because we aren't doing as good as we can. We aren't taking care of our health. We aren't doing all the things to be protectors and providers. And I think that to me is the main takeaway of what they had very real data to support. And I think that a lot of the reasons that men are falling behind is kind of structural. So it's interesting to see that like, oh, this isn't something that I'm just making up in my head. Like the school system has kind of played a role in this. Like all of these things culturally have played a role in it. And I think that once you see that, hey, this is an issue, then you can kind of understand why it's so important for us to keep doing what we're doing, because we can actually have an impact on something that I do think is one of the big reasons why, maybe we're not doing as well, just generally as a society, because men could be better. And if men were doing better, a lot of people would be, getting married, having kids. And I think the family is at the bedrock of our country, man. I think that when we have strong families and people like building lives and starting kids, we are so much better off than, everyone just kind of like focused on themselves and being single and finding out what they want to do. If that makes you happy, great. I'm talking like generally from like a society perspective, I think we're better off like coming together as families and communities, and men leveling up is a big first step to get to that.
Yeah, I mean, they said 300% more likely to get wrapped up in drugs and crime if they don't have a father in the home. I found that to be interesting.
Dude.
Or I mean, they said specifically that, but I'd imagine just like, a family dynamic, right? Like, but
even that, Jay, I think it's one of those things, man, where you can't say these things and be honest about them without the fear of, like, the father in the home is huge, right? Like they talked about this with data. It is a big deal for there to not be a father in the home, like even more so than other aspects missing from the family life. And again, that's not to say that a single mom can't do an incredible job. That's not to say that two women can't raise a family, but to acknowledge like the very, very specific role that a father plays or that a masculine role model plays. Because they were also saying that, hey, if you don't have a father in the home, that's where you should find like a coach or a male teacher. It's just about having like a strong male influence when kids grow up. That disproportionately affects kids. And for me, the thing that I would want to like push back against is that I know that there are people out there that'll hear me say that and be like, well, are you saying women can't raise kids on their own? Well, are you saying that like, same-sex couples can't raise kids on their own? And that's not what I'm saying at all. What I'm saying is that like a father does play a very important role and we should be aware of that. Everyone should be aware of that. And
it'd be like saying mother plays like if I was a single dad, I would do whatever I could to try and impart. I would try and find really strong, capable women and try and surround my kids with them as well. Right?
But here's the thing.
That would be important to me.
But going back to the teacher analogy though,
yeah,
it's a lot. They're gonna be more likely to have the caring, empathetic women in their life without you having to be like super focused on it. If you're a single dad, they're gonna get that stuff regardless. But if you're a single mom, you do have to be very intentional about that. And talking about those differences, I think is just important. And it's not to diminish one side versus the other. It's just fact. It's just true. It's just like the circumstances of, Liz pulled up the statistic, approximately 77% of K-12 public school teachers being women. Like this is all just real stuff. And I know it could be taken out of context and like whatever, but shouldn't stop us from talking about it and being honest about it.
I do remember them saying that. Actually, Scott Galloway said that specifically, didn't he? Because he was talking about, maybe he was talking about that. But yes, he was saying, or someone was saying, one of them was saying that they're going to get exposure to women more easily than they get exposure to men. Assuming you know what I mean?
Right.
If you didn't have one or the other, that's what they were saying. Yeah.
And it's also interesting how, they had a lot of studies to back up the fact that like younger in age, like boys are a lot. What was the example? The example she had, which was really good. Shirt 'em? No, the example she had about like dandelions versus.
Oh yeah,
I forgot what the flower was, but some flower that takes a lot of care. But she was essentially saying that like, and this has been shown through a lot of data, if the father is missing from the home, it doesn't have the same impact on a daughter as it does on a son. Like women, girls in general, when they grow up, are much more resilient. Like for whatever reason, they mature a little quicker, whatever it is. They can deal with, and like, you know, sexual abuse and sexual trauma was another
they
like
brought that up. Yeah.
very obvious example that they brought up. Like, is like abuse when you're a kid a terrible traumatic thing? Of course. And it's terrible if it happens to a young girl. It's terrible if it happens to a young boy. But the resilience of eventually getting over that has been shown that like women can get over it a little bit easier than young boys. And all these things are things that like are uncomfortable to talk about because it's always taken as like diminishing the fact that it's terrible for a girl, but it's not talked about enough that, you know, boys when they're young are a lot more fragile than girls when they're young. And that should be something we should take into consideration when all of these things happen, because it is putting men in a shittier place in the beginning. So it was a really interesting podcast, man. I really appreciate it.
It was like dandelion and something, man. Now
there's a dandelion and a flower that like requires very specific, you know, like environment to thrive. And the analogy was that girls are a lot more like dandelions in that they'll pretty much grow everywhere. It could be a little cold, it could be a little hot, it could be dry, it could be super rainy.
And they're going to grow. Thrive. Yeah.
But, you know, young boys growing up, like they do need all of these things. They need the care and empathy from the mom, but they also need the discipline and structure from the dad. Like they need more structure, more discipline. They need more playtime. They need more flexibility. They just need these things. And that's not to say that that's the case for every single boy or every single girl. This is all talking in generalities and also based off of like real statistics and studies and stuff that they were citing. They're the experts. I'm, you know, regurgitating what they said on the podcast, but it was very interesting and it's kind of in line with some of the other things that I've read and seen. And again, very interesting to me and fascinates me as someone who, you know, before Charlie came, like I was like, hey, we're going to have a son. Like I'm going to raise a boy. And what is it that I should at least be aware of in how I can raise like the most, you know, successful, resilient young boy to grow up and hopefully be, you know, a good man.
I was speaking at a national gang. I don't want to butcher this, but I was just speaking on Monday. I was giving a presentation in front of a group of law enforcement, and it was the International Latino Gang Investigation Association. International Latino Gang Investigation Association. ILGIA. And I was given a presentation about why we should basically work out. And after I gave my presentation, the next speaker came up. And this guy grew up in South LA, and he got involved with you know, one of the street gangs there, like at 11 years old. And he told the story that he had a single mom who was working all the time, and he didn't have a dad. And he found that brotherhood, he found that connection, he found that family on the streets. Exactly. I mean, like countless other people. But the one thing he brought up that I thought was just fascinating is this guy went from like gang affiliated 11-year-old. He then did his first, like he said, like job or whatever for the gang at 13, which is like so young to think about, dude. I can't fathom, like, dude, my son's 11. Could you imagine him like running the streets? Like, dude, what? Like, it just blows my mind that these kids could be on the street at 11. Anyways, he went to say that he got to a point where he had a daughter really young, and he like woke up. That like woke him up. He's like, dude, I can't be doing the gang stuff when I'm older. I think he was like 16 at the time or whatever it was. He's like, I'm either going to end up in jail or end up dead, and I have my daughter that I really want to take care of. So he walks into the Air Force, recruitment office. And basically, dude, you know, by the act of God, and he was sharing this and a variety of things, they gave him exemptions for all of his gang tattoos, and he got into the Air Force. Anyways, he served there for 30 years. He went to like the highest ranking individual for his particular role. And he was sharing this story. And I just thought, for anyone going through the gang to the military has such a great correlation. I was talking to one of the officers there about, if you're in the gang life, like, where do you go? Well, the military could give you such a good purpose, right? It gives you purpose. It gives you brotherhood. It gives you this. It gives you a roof over your head. And so that's the way he got his way out. And, but it all goes back to like missing that male influence is what drove him into the gang in the first place. And then finding that kind of like that culture in the military saved him.
Cool to hear those stories, man, because, you often hear just the no father in the home, no masculine figure ended up, in a bad situation. It's cool to hear the stories where like, you can turn that around. And honestly, very blessed to have, because I mean, how many people maybe were turned away because there weren't those exemptions because of something like a tattoo? And then like, that's tragic because it's like,
you go in once
trying to make the effort and then it's like you get turned away, then what do you do? But
I think about that a lot at the gym, right? Or even like through our Train Hard programs. I'll give you a real life example. So we have the Train Hard app, and if you're not on there, you're completely missing out, in my opinion. I think what we're doing is incredible. Check out the podcast show notes and join our community there. So we have people that comment on the community thread pretty often, right? And they'll be like, hey, one guy recently, he's like, hey, I was 300 pounds, I've lost 30 pounds, and this is my first workout, or something along those lines. This was like yesterday, I think. And I messaged him back, said, hey man, this is my email, or like, tell me more about what made you decide to lose this weight. Like, I want to understand. And I want to engage with him offline to help hold him accountable and then have a conversation about like, what was his why and what's his purpose? Because I think that one of the things that I remember so much about over the last 20 years owning gyms is that it takes a lot of guts for someone to come in and step foot in a gym. It takes a lot of guts, a lot of purpose, just like it takes a lot of guts to walk into a recruitment office for the Air Force. And they have one bad experience and they're never going back in there again. And I think about that all the time with the gym. Someone walks in, man, maybe this is going to be the life-changing thing they need in their life. And then all of a sudden, the coaches doesn't treat them right, or the owner doesn't speak to them right, or they don't answer their phone, or whatever it might be. And when it comes to the Train Hard community on our app, I think that same way. When someone puts something up and they're putting themselves out there, they're being vulnerable, we want to address it with like a lot of care, a lot of excitement, because that could be the difference between them staying on the path or saying, hey, you know what, man, this isn't for me. So I wanted to bring that up here because I think that we need to put ourselves in other people's shoes. And for a lot of people, the journey of weight loss and getting in better shape is difficult. And so like, if you ever have an opportunity to do something positive for them, do it.
Well said, man. Well said.
The guy on the app.
Like the guy on the app. And I think that that's where also, one thing that we've talked about in the past, because we get this question a lot of like trying to get someone really close to you to go on the journey if you're on the journey. And this kind of ties back to that because you have to realize how difficult it is for someone potentially to take that first step. And it is so easy when you're in that specific situation, right? Like say your spouse, like you've done it. You did the 12 weeks, you cut out booze, you got on a program, whether it's ours or some other, and you're feeling better, you're looking better. Obviously, you want to pass that on to this person that you love more than anything else. But if they're not ready to take that step now and you force it, it could be counterproductive. But then most importantly, and this ties back to what you just said, when they do take that first step, and it might not be the first step that you took, like you might have just decided out of the blue to like sign up for a training program, make different decisions with your food, start to sleep better, cut out booze. You did all these things at once and you know that all those things helped you get to where you want to get to quick. This person that you care about might just decide to go on a walk one day when they don't usually walk. They just made that decision. Like, please, please, please celebrate that. Join them. Like, encourage that little win. Don't belittle it because it's a smaller step than the one that you took. Because to your point, that could be the one bad experience that just turns that person back to like, this thing isn't for me. Like the best thing that we can do is support, encourage, and realize that like the first step that we took or whatever step we're up to now in this journey isn't going to be the first step that someone else takes. And the worst thing you can do is like discourage that or belittle that, because that might be the thing that makes them go back to old ways as opposed to using that as the first step to building some momentum.
Yeah, it goes for anything that you want to learn that's new too. Jiu-Jitsu, I think about that all the time. I was just talking to Todd earlier today about Jiu-Jitsu, and I was sharing with him that I'll meet him at the gym. We'll do an open mat on Sunday just because I want to try and make his experience great so he could keep coming back in. Ava has an interest in water polo, and one of my friends
Let's go.
Yeah, dude. One of my friends, the assistant head coach at San Jose State. I called him. I was like, look, bro, I need a favor. I was like, I need you to introduce my daughter to water polo and show her what it is. But I really care. I need it to be like 10 minutes. And I just want it to be fun. I want her to walk away and be like, wow, that was really cool. So can you help me do that? Right. And because I don't need her to get a good workout. I don't need her to
No.
Yeah. You know, nothing. I just want her to be like, wow, I threw a ball. I caught a ball. I understand how to tread water. I mean, she knows how to tread water, but you know what I mean? Like, that was a cool experience, you know? So that's an example.
Because that could easily be a first experience that like sparks a passion for that and wanting to do it. Or it could be something that's like, wow, I'm not good at that, or that was really hard and just not for me. It could easily go one of which ways. So yeah, getting in front of that, man, so important.
Well, the other day, so she goes, hey, Dad, I want to, so normally, you know, I take her swimming a lot and she doesn't like it when I swim with her. She doesn't care, but she doesn't like want me to like swim next to her. I don't know, whatever. And I don't really care because I don't really like swimming anyways. If I have to swim, I will swim, but I don't choose to swim. And she's like, hey, can you show me some better technique of treading water? And I had done some lessons with this guy for water polo. I had done some stuff with Castro back in the day. I had done some stuff back in the day because I was always thinking that one of the CrossFit Games events that were floated around back in the day, so I practiced this one, was it would take you a mile offshore, make you tread water for a while as you waited for the gun and everybody to get in the like, you know, because when you're getting ready for one of these things, like you're just treading water, waiting for the gun to go off, right? So I practiced this and then I would swim back in. So anyways, needless to say, I'm not like an expert at treading water, but I at least can do it. And so I was in there, I was just showing her some of the techniques and stuff. And that was cool. You know, I'd never done that with her before. And the fact that she has an interest, but it had to be her idea. So like we put it in her ear and then it's been her idea. So I've been shutting up after that.
Funny how it always has to be like that. Here's one thing I wanted to talk to you about, and since we're on the topic of kids, I don't know if you saw this. I don't listen to Call Her Daddy the podcast, but I definitely
would never listen to a podcast. That's a bold statement. I would not ever listen to a podcast called Call Her Daddy. If my kids were like, "Hey, what do we listen to?" I'd be like, "Oh, Call Her Daddy." I wouldn't do that.
Sure. I mean, I don't think you're the target demographic, but it's a huge podcast. I mean, she had Kamala Harris on during the elections. Like it's a big platform. So when clips happen there, like it definitely makes the rounds. Like it's not something that, you know, it's a tiny podcast that, you know, has a niche audience. So she had Chappelle Roan on, who's the artist, Pink Pony Club.
Yeah.
Pretty well known. And she had this quote that's been making the rounds where she said, all my friends with kids are in hell. I actually don't know anyone who's happy and has children at this age. And she went on.
How old is she?
Probably in her 20s, mid-20s.
I think she's like early 20s.
Let's see.
Well, because she grew up in like a very in like a conservative area and then came to California. Oh, it's pronounced like Oh, wait, is this Chapel Hill? Wait, no. Who are we talking about right now?
I'm pretty sure it's pronounced
Chapel
Chappelle Roan. Yeah, I don't think it's Chapel.
Wait, Liz just said it's pronounced like church, chapel.
Okay,
Chapel
so
Road.
I mean,
that just shows how old we are right now.
Anyway, she's 27.
Which is, you said Chappelle?
I thought it was Chappelle. I mean, dude,
I know. Chappelle show?
I know zero about her. But she had this quote, and it's been making the rounds. And
no wonder I didn't know the name.
Two things on it. One, I saw a really good breakdown because at first, like, I don't know, as someone that like just had kids and has definitely gone through a tough part, like, you know, like the sleep, the uncertainty, like changing diapers, like kids not being able to tell you what to do, like, dude, I'll be the first one to tell you, like, it is not easy. It is hard. But a lot of the negativity out there with having kids and a lot of like the language of, there's like two things that really, really bother me that I think are more common than I'd like to see. One is like talking to your kids about like as if they're a burden, like talking about your own kids as if like, man, like I remember the times where I could do X, Y, and Z. And I know that like, obviously you don't do that. I don't do that. People that we surround ourselves probably don't do that. But it's out there, and it's out there to an extent. And also the thing that drives me nuts is when parents talk to you and with the like, just wait. Like the constant like, oh, I know you're having fun now, but just like we used to get this all the time from family actually before we had kids. And it was always like, oh yeah, like enjoy your freedom now. Just wait until you have kids. And then it's like, oh, like just wait until they're toddlers. Like just wait until the terrible twos. Like I know that it's fun now, but just wait. Then it's like, you always hear like, just wait until they're teenagers. Like, yeah, they love you now. They want to spend time with you now, but just wait until they're teenagers. And dude, that shit drives me fucking nuts. Like, first of all, like if you're talking to a new parent, what benefit is it to like try and paint this picture that like being a parent is going to like get harder, or like you're going to enjoy it less, or like that these stages in the future are going to be like, something where like, I remember when they were like cute toddlers, like it sucks now. Like whether you're saying it with that intention or not, it really bothers me when people have that approach to talking about kids or talking about their own kids. All that being said, I saw a really interesting response to Chapel Roan saying, this quote about, all my friends and kids are in hell. I actually don't know anyone who's happy and has children at this age. And the point that they made, which was a very good point, is when you commiserate about the hard things about having kids, like, oh man, like I haven't slept really well this week. Anyone without kids understands what that feels like. They can remember a time where, for whatever reason, school, being sick, they can remember how it feels like to not be able to sleep well for a week, and it sucks. So they can relate to it. They're like, man, like I can't imagine that being my situation. The tough part is that you can never explain with words the feeling of, yeah, I didn't sleep at all at night, but when I woke up in the morning and Shay looked at me and gave me that big smile that you saw on the camera the other day and said like, good morning, daddy, it outweighed that by a million. Like, I don't care. Like I immediately forget that I had a shitty night of sleep because there's just something so magical about that moment that it just doesn't matter. But the thing is that like, you can never explain that to someone without kids. You can explain not sleeping for a week and they're like, damn, that sucks. And then you can try to explain how it doesn't even matter because of these little like moments. And honestly, like, and it's no fault to them, obviously, you can't understand that until you have kids. So I thought that was a really good point where like, I can understand why someone that doesn't have kids can see it this way and maybe even like truthfully feel this way. I think the messaging isn't productive and helpful, and it's whatever. But with that being said, I do understand how people without kids can feel this way. Like I 100% do. You just kind of don't get it until you're into it,
Yeah, no, I get it. I would also say like if people saying stuff to you really bothers you that much, gotta just let it go. Probably for you. I'm just saying for you personally.
Well, I mean, for sure. It's definitely like water off our back, but it doesn't change the fact that like, like, is that really, like, is that helpful? Is that, and I'm sure you've heard it all the time. Like we've talked about this with Matt Pedro on the first podcast of here, hey, just wait until they're teenagers is something that's like very commonly said. And Bill Burr had a really funny bit.
That part of that is actually, so the way he was explaining that was that when his kids became teenagers, they weren't an issue because he raised them well. He did these things. That right. was like the point, which I thought was great, by the way. I also think there's something too about trying to set expectations. Yeah, maybe you don't do it the right way. And it obviously has to come from a place of care. But I think letting people know, like, hey, when like, for example, I'm glad people said, and I wish people said it more. Hey, when girls hit like 5th, 6th grade, like, there's some hormonal changes that happen. And like, you should be aware of like some of these things and just be aware. Like, it's not like in a bad way, but like trying to like forewarn you to let you know, like, hey, this is what's going to happen. And you should be aware of it. Especially like with cliques and with girls in school and stuff like that. Like, I don't think that's not the same thing we're talking about. I know, but like, there's also something to be said about trying to like talk about what's really going on and give people a heads up. But I know that's kind of not the exact same thing that you're talking about.
It's not at all. Like, yeah. It's like no one needs to tell me that. And also, I've mentioned this on the podcast before, like, we want to have hella kids. Like, I'm trying to have a gaggle of kids. We say, and again, this is one of those things that I will 100% preface with, I say that now and it might change. We definitely want to have 3, not super, super soon.
How
but
many
we definitely want to have
I've never
more.
even heard that term before. I wonder if Liz could look that up.
I don't know if it's an exact number.
Is it like gaggle 5?
But I definitely want to have, I definitely want to have a lot of kids. And maybe that'll change. Maybe we'll have 3 and for whatever reason, it'll be like, hey, like this is good and this is fine. And I'm also not like everyone, super personal decision, how many kids you want to have, obviously. But I want to have a lot of kids, and I fully expect that my life is only going to get harder, more expensive, significantly more complicated because of that decision. Even if we just stayed with 2 kids, like as they get older, you know, like sure, maybe you sleep a little bit better. You don't have to change diapers, but to your point, you have to deal with hormones, personalities, like relationships at school, like insecurities, like so much stuff that honestly is like a lot more complicated, a lot more nuanced, a lot more, you know, dealing with social media and all of that stuff. Like I have every expectation that it's only going to get harder, but that to me also makes it significantly more meaningful and rewarding. And I just think it's not productive to like make it seem like it's going to get worse, because that's how a lot of that stuff comes off. Because I think you would agree, it's not that it gets better or it gets worse. It gets different. It gets more complicated, but it also gets like incredibly more rewarding because they like have a personality. Like they start to grow into like the things that they're going to love and the things that they don't like. And they say funnier shit and you can have conversations with them. You get to a point where they're your friend. You get to the point where like
Caden's birthday card yesterday. So in Caden's birthday card, I said, when mom and I found out that we were going to have a boy, you know, I had this dream of what it would look like later in the future, that I would have this son of mine that would turn into my, you know, best friend, right? That was my dream, someone to go do things with and whatever. And I was like, that's exactly what we have. And like, I just said, thank you. You know, I just expressed my gratitude.
Like that, like this is the kind of shit that we need more of, not like just wait until they're 12. I'm saying like that. Yes.
Yeah.
That is
I can send you
exactly it.
I mean, I can send you I don't need to send you a picture, but that's what I wrote. I mean, we you know, Ashley had her side, I had my side, and we just wrote.
I love it.
And
love it.
It's the truth, because you have this vision, right? And I think a lot of people can relate to this, you know, who are listening right now, a lot of dads. When you find out you're having a baby girl, something happens within you and it creates an emotion, highly emotional. Something happens within you and you become, at least for me, something changed, right? You become like, what do I want to stand for? How do I want to represent myself? And how do I want to treat my wife in front of her? How do I want her to be protected? Like all these things, like kind of goes through your mind. It's like this weird dynamic. And then when you find out you're having a boy, it's like, dude, I want to raise him to be this way. I can't wait to go do things with him. I can't wait to go fish. I can't wait to go sport. Like, it's just like, it's like a different mentality. And again, neither one is better or different. But then when that time comes, dude, just expressing gratitude for it. It's going to happen for all the guys out there who are listening to this. You know, my son turned 11. My daughter turns 14 in a week from now. And just stay the course. The course isn't easy, but stay the course.
What you said fires me up so much. I love that.
Yeah,
Happy birthday to Caden. Happy birthday to Caden. That's awesome.
Yeah, I'll send you a little snapshot of the card.
Fucking love it.
Yeah, there was something I was going to say dude. So I don't know if you've seen this viral clip that's going around, but it leads into this exact same thing. And this goes back to Chapel Hill or Chapel Road, whatever.
By the way, I don't know what's worse. The fact that you thought it was Chapel Hill, I thought it was Chappelle Roan. But anyway, go ahead.
Either way, in either case, I was, you know, there's this viral clip going around of like this Russian soccer coach. You saw this, I'm sure. You had to have seen this. It's like,
maybe keep explaining.
I might be butchering if it was Russian. It was another language. So this guy is giving like a post press conference, and his team had just been in the semifinals for like the world championships of soccer. And a guy, reporter says, "Hey, how do you feel about X player missing the semifinals for the birth of his child?" And the guy says, what do you mean? How do I feel? And the reporter goes, "Well, it was such an important moment and he wasn't there for it." He goes, "Man, maybe Liz can pull it up because I'm totally butchering this." But essentially what gathered from it is the head coach looks at this person. He says, "Hang on, I'm gonna talk about this for a moment." He goes, "Do you have any children?" The guy says, "No." He goes, "Then you would never understand. It doesn't matter how many people are in the stands. It doesn't matter about the championships. Soccer doesn't matter. The only thing that matters is the birth of this baby." And he just goes into like this really like heartfelt presentation to the entire like community, saying like nothing is more important than this. And I, as the coach, stand by my player who went and took the time with his family. So I thought it was a cool, I'll have to send it to you later. But it goes back to Chapel Road, is that of course, someone from the outside, it's like you talking about your kids going to a ballpark game. Like, dude, there's so many times that people want to, dude, you cannot, look, there's a lot of things in life that I think you need to live it before you can give advice on. There's a lot of things because until you go through it, you can't describe it, especially mental health type stuff. Unless you've actually seen it firsthand or been a part of it, dude, it's hard for you to relate. I'm speaking from experience here.
No, 100%, 100%. And I think that like,
the same thing goes with kids. You know what I mean? Like until you have kids, it's hard to even speak on the
it's impossible. It's
impossible.
It's impossible. And here's the thing, like I don't have any, I don't know if judgment's the right word, but I have no like, I don't take it personally in any way when I do hear someone that doesn't have kids say something that maybe I disagree with, because it's just, I completely understand, because I had a lot of things that I thought were 100% or whatever, that I would parent a certain way, that I would do things a certain way. Like I was convinced. You could not convince me otherwise. It was strong belief, not loosely held. It was strongly held until I had kids. And it just like, it completely changes everything that you're like 100% convinced of. And for that, you just can't fault people. Like it just is what it is. You just like, you can't know it because you can't explain it to people. It's an impossible thing to explain. Good example of this is, you know, we just had a guest on the podcast, and it was so funny because he said this and then said that he didn't have kids. And it was like, oh, that makes sense. When, like completely agree with what he said. Essentially what he was saying is that I was asking in this hypothetical situation of a lot of parents who are just trying to improve their health. And one of the things that a lot of parents say is, hey, I can't get the best sleep because I'm a new parent. And our guest, he said, you know, first of all, I want to preface this a little bit with like, you know, you can work on your kids' circadian rhythm. Like you can do the same things that you would do for adults and help them with their sleep. I 100% agree. Like I get it. But the way that he said it and just this like, well, yeah, if you just do the right habits, like your kids are going to sleep fine. It was very much like, okay, so you definitely don't have kids. Like you definitely have. And that's fine. Like you just don't get it. Because especially for me and Eric, like we are so regimented and like, you know, we come out for like morning walks and we're like doing all these things. And dude, I promise you, there's just going to be times where like the kids don't sleep and that's it. And you can like read all the books about like, you know, getting your kids to get the best sleep, and you can have like the most structured nap schedule, and you can do all the things.
Doesn't matter.
Guess what? There's going to be periods where your sleep is shit because your kids aren't sleeping. And just, that was a really good example of like, okay, yeah, you just haven't lived it. And if you did, you would kind of understand that it's not that simple.
Yeah. And you know, that's one of the reasons why I think that through this podcast, and I hope people have listened to this podcast for a while, realize we just talk from experience. I talk from life experiences. I try and keep an open mind. Obviously, I'd like to think that I'm like, as I've gotten older, I became more, try and be more understanding of different people's situations. But I think it's really important that like, if you're listening to us talk, like, dude, we're just sharing insight of like what we see, statistics we see, our life. And at the end of the day, man, every kid's different. Every life is different. You got to do what's best for you and your family. But we're here with one cornerstone. We believe that training hard allows you to thrive in all those other areas better. I think if you wake early, you train hard, you prioritize protein to start the day, you're going to kick ass during that day. And I am like convicted of that. Like, talk about strong beliefs loosely held. If you find me a better way to optimize me throughout the day, give it to me. As long as it's not some like crazy ass pill or something, give it to me. And I'm ready to rock and roll, because that's the best thing I've found so far. This morning, bro, fast intervals to finish the day. I can't wait to talk about your ski erg form. Dude. Hey, we didn't even get into it on this one, but I was, if you guys watched Fox News on like Saturday, whatever date it was Saturday hang on, I'll tell you right now. It was Saturday the 5th. So it was April 5th. A buddy and I were on Fox News, the real news, like the national news, talking about train hard in the men's club. So if you guys haven't checked that out, I don't know if there's a way that they could see it though. We might be able to share some of that in the future, Gabe. Are we going to put some clips out? Yeah, I mean, I think, well, we actually already have a clip out.
with some paid stuff. But yes, we do have clips, and we'll make sure to get that out, post it on Instagram, or at least get it up on YouTube. I have to find if the full segment is up, but we should be able to at least get some clips for it.
This is such a dad comment, but my dad put up on his YouTube the full clip. I think it has 80 views on it already. So
that's a dad move for
that's
sure.
a total dad thing. And so, anyways, the Fox News it aired. It was about the men's club that we host every week. We talked about Train Hard. We talked about what it meant, and the hosts ended up talking about it actually a few times after that, bringing it back up throughout the show. It was super rewarding, nerve-wracking experience because anytime you guys, anytime you do something live, it always comes with a level of anxiousness. Like I commented on ESPN a couple of years ago, that was stressful. But the internet and that kind of stuff was not in my control. Here, I was filming at my house. And I was just worried that they were going to be like, all right, 60 seconds to air, 30 seconds to air. And then my power was going to go out or something. I was just like, I don't know why. I was like, anyways, I burned a lot of calories that morning just being nervous about what was going to happen.
It was good though. It was good. We'll definitely get it up. We'll figure it out, and we'll try to add it to the show notes here, or it'll be on Instagram, but we'll definitely get it out. It was cool to see, man. And I think you did a great job, bringing the Train Hard Men's Club to life. And it's so cool what you've done with those guys. So I like that it got highlighted.
That's it. All right. Well, Gabe, before we close out, just want to remind everybody that this podcast is really, the goal is to just elevate everybody that's associated with it, from our newsletter to the podcast, to the Train Hard app, to what we're doing at Train Hard, is all surrounded around this podcast, right? We bring guests on, we have different people on, we're really on this mission to train, protect, provide, to level people up. And if you're on that same mission with us, share the podcast with a friend or two. Like, hey, check this out. It's a way for us to grow the message. And so that's the simple ask for today's episode. I hope you and your family's doing well. Keep training hard, and see you guys next week.
Let's go.